All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I'm trying a mic setup so that when I'm in the garage working on stuff, the audio quality is good if I'm, not standing right next to the phone and talking and I'm like moving around the garage and whatnot. So we're gonna give it a shot. Let's see how it turns out. Ooh, it's warm in here. It's kind of chilly out today for what it's been, but I ran into an issue with the V, and it's an issue that I need to fix, and I don't have much time to fix it. So basically, the issue that I ran into was the brake lines on the car. It's an issue that I ran into with the Black V as well. When I went to replace the stainless steel braided lines, the stock rubber lines in the rear with stainless steel braided lines, I realized that someone had been there already and someone did some patchwork and they didn't use the same size brake fittings that I needed. So I ultimately tried cutting off the line, putting the proper size fitting on there, reflaring it, and I could not get the factory side to seal. So it's the same, I ran into this issue on the black car as well. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get some brake line. So I ordered some line, some NiCop line, and really nice stuff. I've used it before, and it's so easy to bend, so easy to work with and make it look clean. And I was like, I'll do a union under the car, further down the brake lines where I have more room to work and whatnot. So I cut the brake line and I put a union in, and I still could not get the car side to seal. Jeez, I got some sun coming in here. Still could not get the car side to seal. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I don't have time to keep trying messing around with this. I just decided I'm gonna order 25 more feet of brake line, 3/16 brake line, and I'm gonna make new lines now from the union up to the ABS pump. So I have the lines all bent around the subframe where they need to be on the rear end, and then they stop midway down the car. And then I'm gonna make two lengths of line that go all the way up to the ABS pump and bend up the proper brake line for those. That way, it's all new. I don't have to worry about flaring and sealing the factory steel lines. These, I think, have a lot more corrosion resistance than steel lines as well. And there were some spots where the stock brake lines do tuck up behind the fuel filter. UV guys will know where there was a good amount of surface rust actually on these brake lines, on the rear brake lines on the car. So I'll be getting rid of that completely. I ended up doing, like I mentioned on the black car, same thing. When I put the stainless steel lines on the front, I ended up building all new hard lines from the ABS pump out to the caliper, just because I could not get the flares. When I reflared the factory steel lines, I could not get them to seal for the life of me. And then you got brake fluid dripping out, it's making a mess, everything's slippery, and it's just not a good time. So today, my first thing that I gotta do is I'm gonna wrap up the rear end. We got the subframe in, you guys saw in the last video, but I need to bolt up the drive shaft, drag the exhaust back. I'm gonna throw the wheels on, drop this thing back onto the ground. We're pretty much done with the rear end, and then I'm gonna jack the passenger side up and I'm gonna make these lines. I gotta pull a rad out, so we're gonna do that, and then make room to make some brake lines. Once the brake lines are done, the rad's going back in for the last time. I'll do the distilled water and water wetter in it, and I'll finalize bolting the exhaust up, and from there we're pretty much done. There's a couple tiny things like cleaning out the interior. I have one airbag left, couple tiny things left we need to do before the tune, but brake lines are important, and right now those are most important for me to get done, because this thing cannot go to the dyno without brakes. So we'll get started here in a little bit, and then we got to do a big cleanup. I'm going to probably do some cleaning up first because it is a mess in here with this project. So enough talking, let's get started. So you can see down in there, the ABS pump has all the brake line fittings right above it, and basically the middle two are the left rear and the right rear. They kind of bend around and whatnot, and they twist all about, and they end up running down the frame rail on this side and all the way down under the car. So I could honestly probably fit a wrench in there to get those two fittings loosened, but I think it's just going to make life easier for me if I pull the rad, and I'll have plenty of room, and also with that I'll be able to see down that frame rail and make sure that they get routed properly. So let me pop this garage door open and get all situated, and we will drain the water from the rad and start the removal process. So one of the reasons why I enjoy using water over antifreeze is because when you pop the hose off and it sprays all over the subframe and makes a giant mess on the floor, I can just sweep it out instead of having an actual antifreeze mess. This is literally just water with nothing else in it, not even water wetter. But on the plus side, there's no oil in my water. So I guess that means when I installed the heads, I did something right with getting the head gaskets to seal. Granted, it hasn't been over like 150 degrees, but I'd say we're off to a good start. So I got the middle two removed, and they trace down and they run down the frame rail. You can see right there. See, it's a lot nicer not having the radiator in here. But how I'm going to approach it is by figuring out, I'm going to start with the right rear. That's this one right here, the inner one. And I'm going to find that one under the car, figure out which union I need to go to, and from there we'll make the line, we'll figure out the length, we will bend it nicely around here, and try to avoid the exhaust. I'll show you what I mean. A little better than stock, but we also have a stock heat shield that we're going to want to put back on. You can see the brake lines right there get kind of close to the headers, so I'm wondering if I can kind of come through there and bring them more down out here along the frame rail, and then we can cut back in around here, and then that's where they'll meet our two unions. All right, we got our first line done right there. Got it looped over, keep it real tight, further away from the balancer than the stock lines. And I haven't tied it up. I'll wait until the other line's done, but it runs a little differently than the stock lines. I'll show you once it's done, kind of where it goes. I don't know if the lights are, you can see it through there, through the wheel well. So it's gonna tuck up here along the frame, stay further away from the exhaust. I'll put the heat wrap back on it, but under there, we have it just threaded into the union. So now we just gotta knock out the other side. Thankfully, this process is pretty easy. I have a whole nother spool, 25 feet of line. I didn't use the full spool for the other one, but with that one, I did the two back sections and all the way up to the front of the car. So with this one, we'll have some left over again, but it doesn't hurt to have this stuff on hand. Not to mention, this stuff also came with bags of fittings and stuff like that. So I have enough brake fittings to last me a lifetime at this point. I will put a link down below. I got it off of Amazon. It was like 40 bucks or something like that. So I'll put a link down below. It's really good 3/16 brake line. I like it. The NiCop stuff is super easy to work with when it comes to bending it. You know, you can just bend it by hand as opposed to the steel stuff. So you just go little by little as you bend it, and it basically allows you to it allows you to make brake lines by hand. You know, I would not do 90 degree, like sharp 90s, but you can do like a real nice angled 90 just by running your thumb along it and applying some downward pressure on it. So it's a nice brake line, and it works well for this car. So I'm gonna knock the other one out, and then I'll show you guys the finished product once it's all buttoned up. And from there, we'll probably jump in tomorrow, because just gonna have to bleed the brakes. And then tomorrow, when I get this thing out, and I'm gonna put it in the front garage, because at some point this week, we're gonna load it up to the trailer, onto the trailer, bring it down to Wergs. So I'll bring it out tomorrow. We have some vinyl that I wanna get on the car as well before it goes to the dyno. I apologize for the poor lighting, but here we are. I'm mad because that first one that I did, just because I unrolled and unraveled it, I got this little wave in here. So I'm gonna try and work that out, but they tuck nicely just up and around this left front line. And before they like came out and just took up a lot of space, and the one was actually touching the rad fan. And this is a nice compact, stays away from the harmonic balancer, stays away from the AC and the cooling hose right here. And it tucks up there, and let's see, you can see it through the wheel well. It follows the frame rail on the inside of the frame rail. It then through there follows the fuel line, which it did before, and then we have our unions right there, so it can be separated from the front to the back, and then goes and swings around the fuel filter and sends it up to the subframe. So I mean, it's all higher than the frame rails and stuff, so I'm not really worried about ground clearance with that. Right there, that spot, I'm gonna push that up a little higher, maybe throw a zip tie on there just to pull it up. But other than that, we're good. I still have the cut line right here. You can see that is the driver's side caliper line. Once I pull the wheel off again to bleed the brakes, I will yank that out. I just cut it right there so I can pull the front half out and make life a little easier for myself. So I'm gonna get that zip tied up, and we're gonna get this thing back on the ground, only to swing around and jack the back up so that we can bleed the brakes. All right, guys, so yesterday we ended up taking the car down to Works, the truck, the trailer, the car. He has all of it. I'll put some pictures in here as I talk. I'm just out here cleaning the garage right now because I need to do a serious straightening up after that whole rear subframe project. Kind of threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting to be doing it, and it just turned into a big and messy project. So car went down, it's all good. I am scheduled to be tuned on the 21st or 22nd of this month. So in 2 weeks, the car is going to get tuned, and from there what we're going to do is move forward with everything else we have going on. If you guys saw in the last video when I got that nut stuck, it was basically all because I was test fitting my dual caliper bracket. And this is just a 3D printed version that my buddy Fisher made for me based off of a cardboard template that I made. And this week, what we're gonna do is Morgan's gonna give me a hand by scanning this into the computer and creating a image file for it. That way I can send it out to get cut out of 1/4 inch steel, just like this kind of replicates. So this is going to be the next move. I did test fit the base model caliper. It just barely fits over the V rotor, so I think we're going to be able to get away with it, and that's what this spacing is for. So I know this video has kind of been all over the place, but I wanted to wrap it up by showing you guys something that I am currently running on my black V that I made myself here. So I have a tow arm with spherical end links that I would have currently been running on the V for probably about 2.5, 3 years now. And what happened was I ended up breaking one of the stock ones. It was so seized up, we ended up breaking it. And I ended up building my own. I've done similar to this on the 3000. I've made my own lower control arms and tow arms on there that are basically the all-wheel steering delete kit. So between like these kinds of parts and whatnot, I created this tow arm. Now this tow arm works, and it has worked on the car, but how I did it was a little bit of a rougher design. For example, you know, with the style on the V, like this basically replicates one of the other ones on the market, but on the inner where it goes into the subframe, it's very difficult to get it to get to this lock nut. So these jam nuts are tough to get to here, easy to get to on the outside, and then you know you can do your alignment, but then it's kind of just a pain in the butt to get a wrench up in there to lock it. So I'm going to introduce to you guys a new prototype part that I've come up with here for the CTS-V1 2004 to 2007, and I will be testing it on the Drift V. And once testing goes well, as far as fitment and just durability, I really have no doubts on the durability compared to what the factory units are. But once testing goes well, I do plan on making these available to CTS and CTS-V owners. So what I've come up with is a complete tow arm that has the double adjuster in the middle. Now this also replicates one of the other ones on the market. It's a similar style with the center adjuster, but basically it has on the outside, so this is the outer side that goes into the knuckle, we have a sleeve, a machined sleeve that goes into the knuckle itself to take up that gap, and then you have a spacer here for the factory bolt to go right onto, and basically for this washer to seat on, and then it allows for some movement in the heim joint. And then on the outside, haven't really finalized this part yet, but I'm not really sure how if I like the way this is just yet. But on the outside, we have some steel spacers like so. I have the zip tie on here, so it's making it kind of difficult to spin around. But these spacers will take up the slack in the subframe and basically center the heim joint in the subframe, and it will make it nice and sturdy. Now, on the outsides, you have the adjustability on the heims, and basically like this arm. So we got this arm right here, this arm right here. You got the same adjustability on the heim joints, but you don't really have to touch these once they're set for the first time because you have the center adjuster. So basically how I have it set up here is these heim joints are only screwed out maybe a third of the way, and then they were locked. Then I used this center adjuster to basically match the 14 inches of stock length that the factory tow arm has. Now this one is adjusted out a little bit. I think this one came in at higher than 14 inches because with the Black V being so low and able to get the tow into spec, it ended up having to be longer anyways. I would have gone shorter had I made these again, but again, it was a test run. So these guys can get to 14 inches, which on the red car was the length from center to center for the stock alignment on stock suspension, and still have a boatload of adjustment outward. So we still have all these threads inside of the arms here, and basically that allows you to add toe out, and we still have a bunch of threads in here as well in case you need a little more. So I think what I'm going to do is, just like run it like this, because I mean all these threads equate to a good amount of degrees of toe, and I think that'll give me plenty of adjustment with plenty of thread engagement to have a very sturdy and durable tow arm that allows for plenty of adjustment and is considerably thicker than the factory arms. I wish I had one here, but again, the car is gone and I don't have them off the car yet. But when it comes to, after testing these, when it comes to making a couple more sets, I will do some comparisons between the factory arm. One of the benefits is that it gets rid of the rubber bushings on the end and you have these solid heim joints, and not to mention, you have a center adjuster right here, and it's just all a lot easier and a lot thicker and more durable. So I think I've shown you guys on, in the previous video when I was doing the subframe stuff, I kind of mentioned how and I wasn't sure if I was going to bring, these or the dual caliper brackets basically to market. And I think after seeing these together, it kind of made me excited at the fact that, I can offer a more cost-effective solution than some of the other ones out there on the market that is, just as durable as what else you can get out there. So be patient with me, guys. I'm going to do some testing, and once the testing is done, same with the dual caliper bracket. Once the testing is done, I'm going to go ahead and try and create a price point for these and maybe do like a group buy or something like that on the V page, and we'll get some of these out so you guys can enjoy the adjustability and the benefits of a upgraded tow arm. So again, thank you guys for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you guys hitting that like button, drop a comment, all that stuff. If you would be interested in something like this, drop a comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.